All right. Hi, Nicole. We're so happy to have you here on the Cor Collective podcast. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So, my name is Nicole Carlon. I am a financial advisor, but I like to call it like a financial GPS. I help clients get from where they are in life to where they want to be using various strategies. So, we do financial planning and we do wealth management, and I think the two really go hand in hand.
Awesome. I love that about you. How did you get started in this?
Um, that will depend on who you ask. I was in college and I was lost and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I called my dad crying sophomore year. And I will preface this by saying that he would always make little comments like, you would be so great at this business. You'd be so great at this business. And I just brushed it off. Nah. And he was like, why don't you come in this business with me? I always told you you would be good at it and all. But I hate numbers. And he's like, it's not just numbers, Cole. It's about people. And I said, okay, let me try it. And if I don't like it, then I won't continue. I mean, what do I have to lose? So I ended up going into a finance degree. I changed my major 2 years into college. And that was very fun. That was very tedious. And when I came out, I kind of right away went in to shadow him. And I was like, oh, this is what you do. Okay. Now I get it because I could see the difference he was making in clients' lives, the relationship, and it is really about people. And so I really don't like the term client. They are my friends. They've literally become friends. It become family. So I love what I do. When people ask like, "Oh, what are you stressing over? Is it about work?" And I'm like, "No, work is not stressful. It's my kids that are stressful."
Well, that's a good lead in. Okay, so you're a mom too. We weren't gonna jump into that, but you are a mom. How do you find balance between running a company and being a mom?
I don't know that I do find balance. I like to Joe Pop Mess Express. It's hard, but I lean on my village a lot. So I have my parents close by, I have my mother-in-law close by, and I have friends that I know that I can count on, and we all help each other. So, if something comes up and I'm here, and as I would get a call right now, I've got people that I can call and be like, hey, can you go pick up the kids? And I don't know that I'm gonna have my sanity if I did not have that village. And so I actually really try to be a village for other people as well because it's not easy. It's really not.
Do you think that you will direct your children into this industry? Is that something that you would like to see your kids being involved in?
I don't know. They're still so young that I don't know how I would feel about it. My daughter, I think she shows the same empathy for people that I think I have, and she likes to take care of others. So I think she would probably be good. I think my son is also really, really smart. And I joke that my son is my father reincarnated, even though my father's still alive. They have very similar personalities. So I don't know if he would end up following it as well. But I would want them to be happy no matter what.
I mean, I love it, and I also love your perspective. And personally, I know this, so I'll share personally that you're not just an advisor; you are definitely a friend. And say that. I remember calling you one time, and I was like, "I need advice," and you were like, "You need therapy, not advice," and it was so true. It was 100% her talking me off a ledge. It had nothing to do with finance, and I think when you're working with people, and you specialize in working with women business owners, building out those she understands she has empathy for it, and I can say personally has like stepped in and been like, okay, that's not a financial decision, that's an emotional decision, and you need to take some time. So there's a lot of clarity in what you do, and I think that's what makes you and your firm practice stand out, like amongst everything else. And I think it's like when you're talking about your kids, I can hear that empathy in your voice. You're like, whatever they want to do, but that makes it better too, because as a person who's investing you with something like their future, and she was like, well, yeah, you do want that connection. She's like, well, if you live to 100, I was like, wait, what? Wait, what do you mean if I live to 100? And she like does the math backwards. And I think that's so great. And I just personally can say like, that's you, when you talk about your tribe too, that's incredible. And you encourage that with every person that you've ever met for the past 2 years of knowing you, three, I don't even know how many years. Two? Okay. Of knowing each other. All right. So living in South Florida, we had a little bit of fun before we started this and talking because you talked about your kids. You came up with a great title. I think I sent it a little bit to you, but let's talk about money dysmorphia.
Okay. So money dysmorphia. Yeah, you sent me a video at like 1 a.m, as you love to do. I always get these videos from Fawn and she, is this true? I will the more.
Yeah.
Is this true? What is it? Oh my God, we should talk about this. I'm like, yeah, money dysmorphia it's really an age-old concept. It is the feeling that even though you may have great income, you may have solid savings, you still feel like you don't have enough, like you're behind. And I think one of the issues that we're seeing and the reason there is money dysmorphia and it's getting worse and worse is because in the past you didn't have social media necessarily. Like you saw people in person and yes, you could have that and be uncomfortable, but now it's everywhere. So you're really not keeping up with the Joneses. You're keeping up with like everybody's curated social media feeds and the life that they're living. And so
Supposedly.
yeah, so you're just kind of like, am I not doing good enough? And
Yes.
am I,
Absolutely.
even if you think that this person is like in the same income level as you and you're like, well, why are they able to do all of these things, but I feel like I can't.
Yeah.
But it may not match your reality. You may be doing really good. So sometimes I can show people 10 times that their financial plan says they are fine for the rest of their life. They're not going to outlive their assets, even on conservative returns, and they still don't feel like it's enough. And that's
Do you
hard.
find that that's more prevalent in South Florida or major cities?
I would say major cities because I do think it's, yes, South Florida, because a lot of areas in South Florida have high income levels. You can say maybe New York, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills type area. But it is hard. And I noticed it when I went to private school in middle school. My parents didn't like the local middle school. And it's a much flashier way of living.
Yeah.
And so for me to come from like really humble beginnings where in the first year, my mom basically told my dad, he made only $12,000. And she's like, you need to get a real job. But he persisted. He persisted.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Look at him.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that he did, but that's, I think there's the reality of that missing. And like you said about social media has led, and I'm part of the problem.
You are. I was going to say.
Not
It's
about
probably
in
the
case
reason.
in case you watch more social, it's not glamorous. That's not what I mean. But doing this, and it's been this major emotional decision lately for me. Is I'm pushing brands, I'm pushing influencers, I'm signing deals for them, being behind the scenes for marketing, and I'm like, I'm contributing to this glamorous lifestyle.
Yeah.
And
People look at you on social media and they see your travels.
oh, I don't think I'm glamorous. No. Oh my gosh. I wish we have discussed traveling and doing a behind the scenes where you see me like 2 o'clock in the morning dragging my suitcase. I mean that we're pushing these ideal images. Like everyone has Louis Vuitton and Gucci and designer and Cartier and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not the real life. And I think that social media is contributing to that. And it used to be, like you said, in a major city, but now someone in Kentucky is watching someone in South Florida with this glamorous lifestyle that they don't even know. And it could all be Rent the Runway. We have no idea.
Yeah, that's very true. We don't. And I mean, it's kind of getting hard with my daughter because, in the past, I wanted things at, let's say, 13. And at the time when I was at this private school, like the little shoulder bags from those designers were like all the rage. And I begged for one. And I didn't need it. And my dad was like, yeah, no. I didn't need it. I wanted it. But like in your 12-year-old brain, you don't know what's the difference between a want and a need. And it's getting so much younger. So whereas my niece maybe wanted these things at like 11, 12, now my 6-year-old is asking me for things. She's like, those famous like water bottles. She's like, I want one of those. And it's not because she needs it. She doesn't even drink that much water to need a 40-ounce water bottle. It's because she sees her friends with it.
And what's the conversation that you have with your daughter at that point?
So this is really great because a client asked me that recently. He has kids about the same age and he's like, how are you teaching them? And I'm trying to teach them in a few different ways. So I can't really do this with my son because he's 3.5. He still definitely will not understand. But he has practice in some of these activities with us. So I'm trying to give them like 3 buckets. So if she gets money from, let's say, a birthday, or she does a lemonade stand and she earns some money, we're doing the 3 bucket rule. And it doesn't have to be exact proportions, but we're saying, okay, here we can choose a small portion of it that we can spend now. So if you want to go buy a toy or something with that money, okay, we're going to set an amount for that. But then we're going to set an amount that we can save for something bigger in the future. And then the third bucket is giving. I really am trying to teach my kids about giving back and that we are fortunate for what we have. And like, I work really hard for what we have and be grateful for that, because I was really raised on like humble beginnings and all about giving back.
How about that?
And then on top of that, sometimes when I go out with her, we've been doing something I like to call like budget. And they always want to do budget now, but that's because they want to buy something at every store. But I'll say, I went shopping with them once and I knew I needed to get something, and I knew if I brought them with me, they were going to be begging for toys. So I said, okay, I will let you each get a toy, but it cannot be more than $10.
Mm.
And so I had them, they'd be like, Mommy, I want this. And I'm like, well, what does the price on that say? And she'd be like, 1, 9. And I'm like, well, what number is that? 19. Okay. Is 19 bigger or less than 10? Oh, it's bigger than 10. I'm like, okay, so then we can't get that. So she went through and she would count, she would look at the price tag and she would see until she found something that was $10. And then she was happy.
So does complex math come in when you start doing like 40% off? I don't know. Like I can't wait to hear how your daughter. I'm like, wait, this is incredible. And I think I love you kind of simplify it for your children, but I think of as adults, if we did the exact same thing, we'd all be in a much better place. Like, here's what our buckets are. For me, doing your job, I've told you this since I've met you, that's exactly where I should have gone in my career, because I love planning out. I love thinking about it. Unfortunately, I move the goalpost on myself all the time.
Yes.
Which you know. But one of those things, I think, what about buckets for, say, business owners? Should they be doing that?
They should, because they need buckets. Well, one, if you have employees especially,
Yes.
you need the buckets for the salary. You need a bucket that's going to be not necessarily maybe distributions, but growth back into the business. And then, yeah, buckets for yourself, because you need to pay yourself as well. And the first few years, that may be harder as you're growing. But everything, yeah, buckets is a great way to go for anything in life.
We talked about in the past, like working with people, like you've said, okay, people who are planning for their future. What is the perfect age to start working with an advisor?
I don't know if there's a perfect age.
Okay.
But I will say that I think in general, educating. So definitely the younger, the better. Because it's not always about it's not always about investments. Like, yes, investments play a role. But that's why I love the planning, because I think the planning gives you the roadmap of how to get to those goals. Like, there's tax planning where we coordinate with accountants to make sure you have like the most efficient plan with their taxes, estate planning with an estate planning attorney to make sure everything is set up correctly. And then we can talk about, the investments, because first there's different levers. So there's like, I can make more money, I can cut my expenses, I can take more risk in investments. So there's different levers. And that's why I think the planning is so important, because you can see where you want to go.
I think that sometimes people feel that they're a little too old, or they are too far along, or might not have enough to put away at a certain age. Is there ever a point where you just look at someone and you're like, I really can't help you, there's nothing I can do for you? Or does it not matter?
There have been times where I'm like, I don't know if I can. It's also maybe I can help you, but are you willing to follow what I'm going to tell you? And that's why a big thing is when I do planning, I do a preliminary plan, because I can tell you what to do, but are you going to follow through? And is it going to really fit your lifestyle? So, I've had times where I do a preliminary plan before we finalize everything. And I say, here are what I'm recommending. Like, here are my recommendations, but let's tailor it to what you feel comfortable with so that you actually follow through on the recommendations.
You're like a trainer for someone. Like, if I go to the gym, they're going to say like, okay, this is how, if you want to get to your goals, this is what you have to do. You have to eat right. You have to lift. You have to do all of this stuff. If somebody wants these results and you're that person, you're like training them in a way of like, how to save, how to invest. And I think, it's so weird, because I was always told save, not invest. And it was pay for everything right now and not leverage. And so meeting you later in life, and I'm in like the more you've talked and the more I've heard you talk to people, I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. I think there's what you know or you don't know, and you can only keep improving. And I love that you're helping your kids, but
It's almost like combining the math with the emotion,
yeah,
because sometimes certain decisions mathematically make sense, but like emotionally to the person, they can't handle that, because that's like when I'm talking about the fact that I went to private school and I saw all these things, like when I came from humble parents, it affects your money story and your money story,
Yeah.
how you view money. So there are people that grew up with constantly being able to afford anything they want. So that's how they live their life, because like that's just how they've grown accustomed to money. Then there's people that they were put in a situation where they had to fight tooth and nail for every dime. So no matter how much, sometimes I'm talking to people not about saving and all this. I'm actually having to push them to live their life. They're like, I don't feel I can travel because, and I'm like,
who are those people, Nicole? No,
I'll be like, let's put into your
Yeah.
financial plan. Let's run a scenario. Let's give you guardrails. And does this affect the financial plan 20 years down the line? And if they can do the travel or do what they enjoy, and it doesn't run the risk of them running out of money, then go ahead and do it. And sometimes you still need to push them because they still don't feel comfortable with it.
That's understandable though. It's a lifestyle change. Just
It is a lifestyle change.
and it's eating healthy.
I think that's been, my greatest challenge. And it's like, okay, I'm a saver. And so like, you're the one who's like, no, look, if we do this, it doesn't affect you when you're 90. Okay. Because you've done all these other things. And I love that you say you push people. And I think that's what makes you different, because a lot of financial planners and advisors, they don't. They're like, here's your numbers. Here's what you're doing. Check off. You do quarterly reviews and you help people all the time.
But you know what? It's not for everybody. And I will say that, like, there are people who are super, like, they don't want the huggy feely. They don't want that emotion, empathy. They just focus on the numbers, and that's fine. Like,
Okay.
there are enough advisors out there in the world, and very good ones out there in the world. And so, but the people that I attract are the people who want that, and that's why I think I enjoy my job and I love my job so much, because we are of the same mindsets.
All right. So you already talked about that you're married and you have kids. I have a question for this, and this one's going to be a little bit tricky. What is the greatest danger if a couple doesn't align on their finances that you've seen? And how do they work through it, or can they?
They can.
Okay.
And it takes lifestyle shifts and discussions, because if it's the same thing and just keeps happening, it can destroy. I'm not a therapist.
Wait, since when?
Luckily I haven't seen too much of that. But you really have to be open about it. And even if you don't a lot, you have to be like open about what's going on. And I really do encourage couples to come in together, or the other couple in the loop. And even if it's one spouse working with me more than the other, I'm like, all right, let me have a call with the other spouse and at least show them, even if it's one, maybe they don't want to meet with me quarterly, but at least once a year, go over it with them, and like, so they feel more comfortable. But yeah, that's really a tough one. And they do say that money can lead to divorce. And
100%. I think if you're not aligned, and even when you're dating, figuring out that with a person and say like, okay, because if you grew up in two different ones, like if you have always humble beginnings and the other person has always got what they've wanted, it kind of just makes sense. Spending becomes totally different. So I love hearing your perspective on it. I think as we talk to different people about like health, about like all of these actually do lead into relationships.
But I can tell you from personal experience, it can work. And if mindsets are like shifted. So when my parents came, to the States, my mom, my grandpa's a doctor. So she came from that. And my dad said, we're not taking a cent from either of our parents. We're going to do this on our own. And my mom she is a very, big saver and all of that. So like, even though she, had a doctor for a father and like everything was good, she kind of adopted that like lifestyle that we're going to save everything we can to make sure we can retire early if we want. And, even she still has trouble sometimes, like being like, oh, I can afford this now, but like she just can't grasp the concept of it. But they worked together to build, what they have.
As you lead into like business owners and talking to them, what are like some tips that you're just like, hey, keep this in mind, even if they're like not ready to work with someone, what should they be keeping in mind?
They really do need to have a team of professionals that they're working with, because there are things that can help them in the long run. For example, I'm going after this to go talk to some realtors, and some things a lot of realtors they're all a lot of the times 1099 employees. So there are let's say tax strategies that can be useful for them running their business that can make them more efficient. And so I say have a great accountant, have a great attorney who will set you up with the right structure. I mean, they really need to have a team. And even financial planning, it's always, I think, a team of your advisor, your accountant, your attorney, everybody working together to give you the best outcome. But I will also say, and this isn't necessarily like financial or anything, is be able to adapt. Adapt because the world is changing rapidly. So if you can adapt and start implementing these things and keeping yourself ahead, then you're not going to fall backwards.
Is there a stereotype that you feel you are faced with often where having conversations with new clients or people that are interested in what you're doing?
Yes. And a few different ones. One,
Okay.
female in a male-dominated field. So that's a big hurdle sometimes to come over. But I do notice that you're seeing a change and women want to be heard. So I think a lot of women are enjoying working more with female advisors because we do have the empathy. We are willing to listen, really goal-oriented. So I think they do appreciate that. But I also work with my father. And so that's a big thing that I've felt. Sometimes it's my internal dialogue and not like the outward that I feel that I have to overcome. But it is also different being a female working with your father versus a male going into the family business. So luckily it's been amazing. My clients had actually loved it. But it is something that I felt like I did have to overcome a little bit. And like, yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm working really hard. I have a right to be here, not just I was just put here because this is my father's business and I don't know what I'm doing. Like I work hard. And it's really nice now when the clients are like, do I call you or do I call him? And I'm like, I mean, you can call him if you just want to chit chat, but yeah, most of the things call me. And they'll call me for everything. And he's like,
You are the therapist.
he's like, you
She is. She says she's not, but she is.
He's like, you think that I'm going to get offended, but I love it. He's like, please go talk to Nicole.
But money is such a huge part of relationships. It's a huge part of your life. It's a huge part of stressors. And so if you don't have that, I think that's one of the things people stress out about the most. And so we know we should not call you a therapist, but Nicole, you walk people through so much. You are so involved.
I do joke that like it's a therapy session. And I'm like, it's funny because my first half of college, I was really studying psychology and business.
Well, that makes sense why you're so good.
My father and I both love psychology. I love learning how the brain works, how all of these things. And so we did start with psychology and business because I said I didn't think I could sit there all day and be a therapist and not take that home with me. But I always felt like it goes hand in hand with a business. So yes, I studied for 2 years and I love it. And I still like learn things all the time about it. And it does go hand in hand with money. Even the estate planning is such a big emotional impact for people. And I've almost, I don't know if I've become desensitized, but working with all of this. And one thing I do think my clients appreciate about us is I'm also open about my life. Yeah. So it's not just like I'm just their advisor and I listen to all the things that they talk about their lives, but like I'm truly open about mine. So I will sit there in the first 20 minutes of a conversation with a client around my age and we're just like, how are we dealing with these kids? How are we surviving summer with the kids at home? And we'll just laugh for like 20 minutes straight talking about how difficult parenting is, and we'll talk about how are we dealing with our children and teaching them about money. And, the client that I was talking to about that, like now their kids love us and like we come and they're like, I know, cool. Like, I'm also talking to them and offering to my clients, like when their clients are 15, 16, I'm like, have them come in and talk to me.
Oh,
Have them come in and
no,
talk to me.
that's so great.
So important.
and just to teach them, because it's not something that I noticed was taught a lot in college. So like, if they're working, you know, we can talk to them about starting these savings, starting these things. Like, how can they set themselves up
Before they have money dysmorphia. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is like so important. This is not a fair question. And I know that we're going to wrap up with it. So it's not fair because you did grow up, like you said, with your dad doing this. But if you could tell 20-year-old you a piece of advice about investing or saving or any of that, because I know you've offered to talk to like my team and stuff, but what would you tell the younger self of you to do differently?
Ooh, okay. It kind of actually is a good question, because even though I've been raised in a household, um, you know, again, I talked about my money story. It's like going from humble beginnings to suddenly seeing all these people, and then like being like, well, if I don't have that, you know, am I fitting in? And so it's trying to remind myself that everything that I see out there is not always what it seems.
Mm.
And what I'm teaching my kids is this: it's not that it's bad, that lifestyle is one is not better than the other. It's, what do I want out of life, and what is my priority, and to save for that. So my priority, and the priority my parents have, was always traveling, because my grandparents are overseas. So they wanted to make sure that every year I can visit my grandparents overseas. And now I love traveling. My husband loves traveling. So for us, that is our goal. But we're going to save for that and becoming more responsible and going back to that full bucket system. And so when my daughter will sometimes talk to me about things, and she's like, well, I want this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, we can have that. But if we spend on this, then we're not going to have as much to do the travel, because my kids are now world travelers. They've traveled to see their great grandparents. They have 4 great grandparents alive.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's been very important.
Yeah.
The key is to have them do. So for me, it would be, when you're earning your paycheck, put more aside, pay yourself first, and try to figure out what are your values, not just trying to keep up with everybody else.
Yes, because what other people think.
Yes, exactly. And that's really hard, even at 20, to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in your 40s, it's hard. But I think that is such great advice. And I want to say thank you. Okay, where can people find you? Because I know we're going to get flooded with questions.
Okay. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook at it's Nicole Carlon on Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can find me as well. And then my website is wiseoakblog.com.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.